Hello and welcome back. So we are in the third session already now. What we did is in the first session we learned how to make these nice textures. I've dried really well. I've given it more than 24 hours, actually 48 hours of drying so that it's not going to come out when I paint again. In the second part we learned how to do this very pretty blended in sky. Now let's do something. Let's paint the sand area here. This is the beach, the seascape that we're looking into, right? So the way I want to do is quite simple. So maybe this area is more darker sand and then we bring it more lighter, right? And the first thing that we have to do for getting a nice sand color is to mix the colors. I have three colors here. One is burnt sienna, that's really super dark. If you see, it's more like dark brown. That's one color that I have. I also have the second color, which is the raw sienna, which is also maybe more towards a chocolate paste. Let's say I see it as chocolate paste. Then I have cadmium hue or cadmium yellow, medium hue. That's also a very nice, pretty color. And finally, what I have is also white to make dark versus light sand color. So let's keep the painting away so that we don't spoil it, and let's start mixing the colors to get the right sand color. So what I would love to start is with a bit of raw sienna. Then I will add the burnt one so that it's the darker color. And then I will add the cadmium hue yellow, which is also not the light yellow but a bit darker yellow. And I have all the colors in. I will leave the white for now and see how that's going to work later. But I will use the palette knife so that I can have a good mixture and then later clean it and use it. So this palette knife was sitting inside the water till now. So I'm going to clean it with take away all the paint. Well, whatever stuck is stuck. And then let's start mixing. So I'm bringing the camera closer so that you can see the shades coming in. It's actually lighter than what you see in the video. It's really like chocolate. I will take a little yellow and see how it's changing. Well, it's more yellow. I think I need a little bit more yellow so that I have the hue. I'm adding more yellow because I want to have really this light sand color. So yellow makes it more lighter, but it also gives us yellow huge texture, which could be nice, but I think I need something more brown. Okay, so what I have right now is nice, let's say dark sand, wet sand color here, which is fine. But I want to see how it looks with white, a little bit of white, so that I know how light are we getting. So I'm adding a bit white. Now I will take the brush because that way I know what color I'm looking into, a wet brush. So what I have today is a flat number 3 brush, and let's take some color here. Let's take some white and see how I like it. Well, I think it's pretty nice. This light sand shade is really nice. Now the question is, how do I keep it longer? So this is the color that I need. I'm not sure if you can see it, but this is exactly the color that I want. Now let's go back to the board and start painting on it. So here you go. Now I still have the color on the brush, so let's slowly start painting. This is really light and I want the light to be here. I like the color that's coming out. It's really nice creamy sand color, let's say. So as usual, I go over the sides because I really want to have these whole painting going overboard the side. So this is one shade, and maybe I would take a bit more darker color and bring more. So what I will do a bit, so before I complete it with the whole thing, what I would show you is I'm taking the darker color, the darker sand color, and filling up these depth areas, so these underneath dark areas, which is where I would like to have that depth seen, so that there's some kind of depth in the whole sand and it doesn't look flat. So this is how it would look from on a closer look. So I put the darker shades in here so that I can have this nice depth created. I'm just filling the inner part of this depth, not the entire place. Like here, another one. Alright. Now I would fill the whole paint with dark and light shades. So I would do the dark shade here. I need a lot more white, so I'm going to wet it a little bit so that I can spread it a little bit more and get more white. So I will mix it on the board. So that's also really a technique that I like to do, because that way I can control how much paint and how much darkness is in there and how much can I make the changes, the shades. So for doing this technique, what you have to do is always make sure that the paint is remaining wet on the board. So I use water and I add dark color, some more dark, and I would add white directly on top of this. So that's a really nice technique to have, because sometimes you're not sure what color you want to have, and I think it's a good idea that if you have a wet if your color is wet on the board, then you can keep mixing them, blending them already on the board directly, which is something that I really like to do always. Alright, so let me finish the whole thing. So if you're not sure how to blend, what you can do is wet the board first and then add the colors that you need. And if you're not sure how you want to bring the gradient, I think we learned it while we were doing the sky. What we could do is keep the board wet and add colors onto it, and then eventually when you keep mixing them, so like I said, keep going in one direction so that you will eventually mix it. So now what I need is a bit more white here so that I can blend in from the light to the dark, but I also want to leave these white there so that you see the depth that's building up. But this is more like really like chocolate color. But now what I'm going to do is get this white out here. So I have a lot of paint here. I'm going to put all the paint here, put it here, because I need to cover this entire area. So I'm putting all the paint here, and I would also take the whole white, put it here. And what is missing for me is a little bit more white. So the same technique, I would add white onto the board directly. And now comes the fun part, because I would take a lot of water and start spreading so that I mix the white, and it gives the sandy effect that I want to have. Oh, it's turning out so well. Yes, of course, the sides. So I think I need a bit more water so that I can be sure that I'm spreading everything all right. This is a nice technique to keep in mind when you're actually painting larger spaces, larger boards, because that way you don't have to have another palette, mix everything, and then bring everything here. This is also a nice way to play around with colors on the canvas. This is also a nice way to learn how can you control the paint and the shades in the canvas. It's a very good technique while you're learning, because this way you see how the canvas reacts to your paints. So you see how the colors are blending in, how much water do you need, how much shades or darker, lighter do you need. So you kind of see those effects directly on the board. Feel free to play around, because this is actually the best part of painting, that you can play around, and as long as the paint is wet, you can keep blending, making changes, adding shades. You can go on and on and on, right? So that's a nice, lovely thing about having the canvas wet. Yeah, this is really turning out to be really pretty. I like the way how the sand is turning out. I also like the way how the textures are coming. Now what I don't like is there's still a bit of blocky feeling here, which I will clean the whole brush, because I want to take away the blocky effect. So I clean the brush, wipe it with a tissue, and now I would do the same technique as what we did for the sky. I think this time I want to bring the darker side to the lighter. So last time what we did in the sky was we brought the light to the dark, but here I think I will bring the dark to the light and go over in one direction, so that I kind of do not have that strict blocky effect. Well, I like the way how the sand has turned out to be. Now the question is always, what else are we going to do, because this is just a very plain seascape. What I would also do is, once this is completely dry, what I have in mind is have some nice pretty bushes here, which we can paint over this, and also have this area covered with something really very beach specific. Otherwise I think it's very blunt for now, because it's just a very simple seascape. I would like to finish up doing this, but maybe I do not record this as a video. Let's see how that's going to go. But anyway, so this is the sand part, the third part, and thank you so much for watching this. And I'm really grateful if you've actually made it to the third class. We will go and learn to add more details to this so that it looks more realistic, and eventually we have a very nice beach or a seascape.